enjoy hearing from Roxanne Watson.
Hey, hello, everybody. I'm sorry, I'm in the bed here. I'm not feeling well, but I it was important that I come here tonight to speak with you guys. I have met some of you, a few of you, on my show, and back and forth in Facebook for sure. And I'm really proud to be here. I think my problem is I always think everybody knows the story because I've been telling it so long that everybody knows, but I'm going to make it as brief as possible. And then, we're definitely going to talk about tips and things like that to get as many people signed up as possible. So in 2006, I was working in retail and I had was in a truck actually. I was unloading the truck with my associates and felt a twinge in my left side, my left back actually. Didn't think much of it, got out of the truck, went to my office, sat down, took a baby aspirin, thank God. And when I felt a little bit better, I just got in my car and went home. I drove back and forth to work for 6 weeks. I live in Rockland County and I worked in New York City in the Bronx. So the ride is probably about 35, 40 minutes at the most every morning, every afternoon for 6 weeks. Didn't think twice about it. Still had that little tiny pain after the 6 weeks. And I mean, when I say it was a little pain, it was just an annoying enough that I thought I had pulled a muscle. I went to the ER, I went to the hospital, my local hospital, and my I told them I pulled the muscle and it's really hurting and I want somebody to take a look at me. So they did a few tests and then three doctors came back. I should have known I was in trouble then. Three doctors came back and they said, "So you pulled the muscle, huh?" I said, "Yep, I pulled the muscle." "And what were you doing?" And I told them unloading the truck. And they said, "Well, when did that happen?" I said, "About 6 weeks ago." And one doctor said, "Well, 6 weeks ago you had a heart attack." I had no clue, guys, that I had a heart attack at all. It didn't, just like I said, it felt like somebody was, like I had just pulled a muscle, basically, is what I thought. So from there, I went straight into cardiac care. They were like, "You need to go to cardiac care." They took me, I was working, obviously, but they took me on short-term disability. They said, "Let's work on it throughout the summer," because I had this in the beginning of May. Wasn't diagnosed till June, first week of June. I went into cardiac care for the summer. And when September rolled around and my time was up for my short-term disability, my doctor's like, "You're going out on long term." I was like, "Oh my God, I love my job. I did not want to be home, you know, vegging basically." But I did what I had to do. Went back and forth to work. I mean, not to work, to the doctors for 2 years. So that was in 2006. And in June of 2008, my doctors in my local area came to me and said, "Well, there's nothing else we can do for you here in Rockland County. You got to go to New York City for advanced cardiac care." Not happy with that. I was not happy with that, but it was what it was. So I went. They put me in the hospital. Nine days of in the hospital, and finally, they came to me at the end of the 9 days and they said, "Okay, we did our evaluation." So Dr. Shin said, "We have good news and we have bad news." I said, "Okay, give me the bad news first, because that's the kind of person I am. Give me that first." And she's like, "Okay, the bad news is your heart is failing, but the good news is we're going to put you on the transplant list." I did not think that was good news, believe me. But I didn't understand the scope of it. You know how you go to the doctor and you guys have all seen the Charlie Brown cartoon, right? When the adults are talking and go, wah, 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 that's what it sounded like. After she said you need a transplant, I didn't hear nothing. That was it. I was done. Time for me to get out of there, go home. I went home and I gathered that family around and I said, "Well, good news and bad news. Bad news, heart is failing. Good news is you're going on the transplant list." my family, I mean, I still can remember the horror of the faces of the people in my family. That's when I actually really realized how bad it was. I didn't really understand that until then. So I saw those faces and everybody was like, they were in shock and horror and oh my God, what are we gonna do? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing else we could do. So we went to the city for advanced cardiac care. I went every 2, 3 weeks for appointments. And she told me, she said, we're going to put you on a stat 2, but eventually that heart is going to get worse and it's going to start failing. And then we're going to have to go 1A and make this happen. So for almost 2 years, about a year and a half, I was treated, every 3, 4 weeks, I'd go do whatever it was, EKG, MRI, anything. They were doing all kinds of tests. But what happened around Christmas time of 2009, I started rapidly losing weight and I couldn't keep it on. They had me drinking milkshakes and ice cream and anything that's bad for you to make you gain weight is what they had me on. And I still was losing weight, losing 5, 6 pounds a week. So finally, by the time we got to April of 2010 now, this is almost 4 years. April of 2010, I went for my appointment and I was 95 pounds. And Dr. Shin's like, okay, so now this is critical. You cannot stay home. If you stay home, you're going to die. So we're going to put you in and we're going to begin the wait in inpatient. That was not fun. You guys know how it is to be in the hospital and just can't get out. They just wouldn't let me out for any reason. So late April, they put me in. About 3 or 4 weeks after I was in, came the first offer of a heart. Like I said, first offer. Note what I'm saying. First offer. They had a match. They went ahead, they went to retrieve the heart, and the heart was damaged. So they come back to the hospital. Now, you've been prepped, you're ready to go. You talk to your family, say goodbye just in case you don't make it, and boom, no heart. Very disappointing. I can still remember that, just devastated. I just thought, oh my God, I can't go through this again. A couple of weeks later came the offer of the second heart. And as you guys know, in transplant world, the sickest, thank God, I hope it still is the case and always will be, the sickest gets the next organ, basically. I was 1A at that point, but there was somebody that was a match and it was sicker than me, and that team took the heart. So I didn't get the second heart. 3 or 4 weeks later comes the offer of the third heart. Now, this gentleman, I was told, had a high risk heart. Nobody told me what it was until right before they were going to ask me, did I want it? It was an HIV heart. So obviously at that time, that was 2010, there was, not the science that we have now. And I decided not to take the heart. So now I'm still in the hospital. It's 60 days and I'm still there. And I just had a vow to myself. As I say, it was an Oprah aha moment. I had that aha moment that said, if you live, Roxanne, you will do this work so nobody will go through this like this again. You're going to make sure whatever you have to do to share a story, sign people up, talk here, talk there, whatever you have to do. If you live, you have to do it because it was horrible. It was torture. It really was torture. So now, about 20 days later, comes the offer of the final heart, which is Michael Bolville. I usually have his picture, but I don't have it right now because it's out. They're making a poster or something. So I don't have it to show it to you, but I'm sure you guys have seen it. If you've been on my Facebook page, you've seen Michael. I got that call on Thursday, and I was told it was a possibility. And you know what, guys? By that time, I had been through it 3 times. So I was not even trying to hear it. I was like, whatever. When you know that heart is mine and it's for me and it's perfect and it's on its way. Tell me then. I don't want to go through this, up and down like I had been doing. And then finally, I was in the hospital, and my son walked in the room, and he said, "It's go time." And I knew that that was, it was going down. Uh, Friday, I was taken down to the OR at about 5 o'clock, and I began to wait there a little bit. Everybody was apologizing. Oh, it's this and that. What had happened was my donor was donating all of his organs, and as you guys know, in the protocol, the heart always goes last because they needed to pump the blood. So they were like, okay, so we're gonna wait a little while, but we're gonna wait here in the operating room. So when it comes and it's local, they said that it's local. When it comes, we'll be ready. I had since found out that uh, my donor had passed in a motorcycle accident, and he was at Harlem Hospital in Manhattan, and I was in the Bronx. So, as you guys may know or may not know, it's not that far. Took them probably about 20, 25 minutes through the traffic to get there, but it wasn't far at all. So I waited, and then they came to me around 7 o'clock and said, okay, start counting. And all I remember is 99. I don't remember what happened after that. That was Friday. I woke up on Monday, and I just remember a voice in the distance and said, Mary, Roxanne, this is Mary. Wake up. You have a new heart. That's the first thing I heard. I still remember that to this day, like a distant voice. And it was Mary, my nurse, waking me up from that induced coma and getting started. So probably I was in the hospital altogether that year about 104 days. And of course, I was ready to get out of there as quick as I could. I had a little baby, low-grade fever, so it was 7 days that they wanted to let me out in a week, but they wouldn't let me out because they said it's Friday night, and then if you get sick, there's nobody going to be here really on the weekends, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to keep you till Monday. So they wound up keeping me about 9 days. I was the longest inpatient stay and the shortest recovery. And I was out of there. I was gone. In the car, I left in my robe. I didn't even get dressed. I was like, enough of this. But that was 9 days later. That was right before then was Minority Organ Donor Awareness Day. It didn't have a week. It didn't have a month. It was just one day. And my surgeon and my cardiologist came to me and said, this is what we do once a year for Organ Donation Day for Minority. Would you come to the hospital and speak? It was 9 days after I had got discharged. And they were kind of worried, but they wanted me to come and share the story because it was important to do that. And I did. So that was my first event 9 days after I got out of the hospital. And after I got to the end of my speech and did my whole spiel, told my whole story, I asked everyone that wasn't an organ donor there to sign up. I just said, you know what? The reason why this is happening is we're waiting as people of color. It's us. We're in this hospital waiting, and you guys need to help us. And 20 people signed up that day. And that was the beginning of the journey, really was. Because I said, if I can ask people to do this, and 20 people that don't even know me, just met me, can listen to the story and sign up, then this is powerful stuff. And I knew it. I knew it right then. And I began TV, radio, anything I could get myself on, anybody I could meet, anywhere I went. I just made sure I shared the story. About 11 months after I got the transplant, I met my donor family on Oprah. Oprah found them because she had heard the story of how, this crazy woman was out there chasing people, signing people up all over the place. And they surprised me. I knew I'd be on Oprah, but I didn't know my donor family was going to be there. And we met them with Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, Susie Ormond, Gail King, Oprah. Everybody was there. It was just awesome. And you know what happens after you do Oprah? It blows up. So that's what happened. It just blew up. And we've been on this road for 13 years now. And every place we go, and I say we because it's me and Michael, every place we go, we ask people to register. Simple as that. Simple as that. There's no great formula to it or anything. If I speak somewhere, they know I'm going to ask them to register to be donors. That's it. Period. I've registered people in a pizza shop that were behind me and and talking, and I jump in their conversation. And I've registered people, with 3,000 people there, so it's nothing special other than ask. We have to ask people. This is something we can't do by ourselves. You have to ask people to help you. And that's the biggest thing that I learned from being sick, because I was one of those people that didn't feel like, oh, I could do it myself. Crazy Black woman. I can do it. I can do it, But I learned from this whole experience that you have to ask people to help you. And that's what I do, basically. Hop in.
I got a question.
Sure.
A lot of transplant patients, when people see us, they don't really know what we're going through. And you had 13 years. Tell us about some of the downsides of transplant, like when you go through different things.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe. I have not even been sick one day. I have been perfectly well. So I can't complain about the medical part of it, other than, the regular gaining weight and all that stuff. But because I was 95 pounds, I wanted to gain weight. So that wasn't a bad thing. But I think the toughest part for most people is the mental part that you have to go through. All of us, and I know I can say this for all of us that are, especially on this call, we took care of ourselves. We took care of ourselves. And then when we got sick, people had to help us. And we weren't used to that. We weren't used to asking people for help. We weren't needing help. I didn't need anybody to take care of me medically until I got sick. And thank God my son was there as a caregiver. That's the biggest thing that I faced, having to accept help, accept that you're sick, and get over, trying to do everything yourself. I think that was my biggest thing. But medically, no issues, just one cold in 12 years. And, they put me in the hospital because they were like, oh my God, you've never been sick. They made me stay in the hospital for 3 days for a cold. I wasn't hooked up to any machines. I didn't get any drugs or anything special. We're just going to sit your butt still for 3 days because we know that you're going to get right back out there and catch something. In COVID, I was fully masked, I double masked, but I still did all of my events. I wasn't afraid, I wasn't afraid of it. I figured, I got a purpose and God's not going to let me die from that. And thank God, I made it through that too. But no, no biggie. I'm lucky, girl. I know that. I know that.
Ms. Roxanne, I have a question.
Sure.
Again, I bask in the glory of being a caregiver. What did you, and I know that you said that your son provided your care.
Yep.
What would be the biggest thing you could tell a caregiver to do or not to do in your case to be an effective caregiver?
Watch us. Watch our behavior, especially. Watch us. Just don't make sure we take our medicine and, I'm talking about watch what we do, watch our behavior, watch our ups and downs. I mean, I thought I was just fabulous and doing just fine until somebody was interviewing my son, probably about 5 or 6 years after the transplant. And he was telling them about all the stuff I was going through. I had no clue. I had no clue. He's like, oh yeah, she was struggling mentally a little bit and she was this and that. And I didn't have a clue that all of that was going on. So I think watching us mentally is really, really important because we're up and we're down. Some days, that you've seen it. Some days we're fine, and then other days we're tired. We're nonverbal. I mean, when you see those type of behaviors from somebody who's yapping their mouth all the time, something's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear you say that operative word of watch, because I used to observe the person I was providing care to very closely, and I could just tell from coloring whether or not that day was a good day or not a good day.
Yeah.
And I'd find a way not to agitate her, because it is different, because you want to be a help and not someone that causes pain, because they're going through something that you can't really truly relate to because it's not you, but you want to be a help. So you don't want to do anything that's aggravate or make them feel worse or anything of that nature. And then the other thing, and I guess it's not time for it, but when you can, just a couple of the strategies in your approach to sharing information about organ donation.
I sign up people almost every day, only from conversations. It doesn't have to be me. Where I've talked in front of St. Patrick, 3,000 people. I've had that, I've had that experience to address people and do TV and I have 12 million this and that. All of that stuff means nothing if you can't reach that person in that pizza shop. You know what I'm saying? Those were the most important moments of standing behind somebody and my heart and I'm listening to this woman and I'm like, you have symptoms of heart failure. You need to go to the hospital. By just being nosy, honestly, I was just listening to her conversation, right? She went to the hospital and God knows she was having a heart attack. Had I not been nosy and listening to people and jumping in, I do that a lot. I do. But you know what? I'm a lucky in the sense that I'm from New York and you can say whatever the hell you want to say to people. If they don't like it, it's no big deal. You just go on to the next person, but having the conversation with people about what's going on, so often, especially people of color, when I'm in the mall, they come to me and say, oh yeah, well, my aunt's on dialysis. As soon as I hear that word, I just go into mode. They're on dialysis. You guys know that there's so many people that don't need to be on dialysis. Not that everybody can get a transplant, but there's so many people that qualify and need that help, and we can guide that, So there's some trigger words for me when I'm having a conversation. Dialysis being one of them.
And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I'm asking because nobody else is jumping in. So you said pizza parlor, stores, mall. Is it that the people have face recognition with you, or do you go in and ask these people, can you just work outside their place or in their place?
I do a little bit of both. Because I've been doing it so long, everybody knows me. That's yes. That part is. But there's places where you're not welcome. So those are the ones I work on getting into. If somebody's like, oh yeah, my church would look, you said my church, you get in touch with the people at your church and I'll be there. That's it. If somebody says there's an opportunity, I have done presentations, like I said, in a pizza shop, in a mall. I do it in the mall all the time at my table. I've done presentations in churches, schools, especially high schools. I mean, last time we went to high school, we signed up 151 kids in 4 hours. They get it. They just need to hear it. So look for all of those opportunities. We got in touch with the superintendent of the district and said, all of the kids need to be educated on organ donation. He says, come in and do it. Period. Nobody had asked. You just have to ask. And like my mother said all the time, you've heard no before. If they say no, I'll be back next year. Or if the superintendent changes, I'll go see the other superintendent. And you have to effectively use media. You know what I mean? They are there to share stories. Why not share a good story instead of 7 people got shot at the party? Here's a story of 7 people got helped by one person. You know?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rox, this is George.
Yep.
And I have always been fascinated when I see you on Facebook and I did this weekend and that this weekend. I mean, I forget the number that Shirley mentioned, 13,000.
Yep.
And sometimes it frustrates me when our wonderful OPOs, you know, you spend the whole day and you get 3 people signed up.
Yeah.
And it you know, it's quite frustrating, but for you to have done that in how many years with your heart now?
13 years.
13 years. I mean, that's 1,000 people a year.
Yep.
And I don't even see 1,000 people every year.
Yeah, but there's places that you can find those 1,000 people.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and the OPOs, you know what I do with them, and this is the truth, and everybody who knows me knows. I call them up and I say, send me the bracelets, send me the applications, send me the promo stuff, and leave me alone.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
the way I do it. Because when you get them and they're on top of you and they want to come and volunteer and help you, it doesn't work out.
I agree.
It doesn't
I
work.
agree.
You need people behind those tables that have passion,
Mm-hmm.
not people that get paid to do it. Okay? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do with my OPO. They're fabulous. But most of our opportunity comes through the press, on TV all the time. I mean, I can call the station and get somebody to wherever I am in, a couple of hours because they know they're going to get a good story out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to push, that these stories are good stories. Even the ones of people waiting for years. We had a lady that was waiting 10 years for a kidney. 10 years. One story, 5 people stepped forward. He just didn't know how to work it. And a lot of people, even a lot of us don't know how to do it.
And it's interesting how you have gotten into the school.
You can have a day every semester. One day a semester doesn't take a lot. We do it on Valentine's Day and second semester only because that's when the health classes learn about heart disease and different things like that. We do all of the health classes. We go to every single health class. A couple of the high schools have bioethics class. We go to the bioethics class. Whatever relates to healthcare and health fairs, we're there at that high school. And that made such a big difference.
So that everybody understands the seriousness of a heart transplant. I mean, your heart is removed, and if something happens to the donor heart,
you're dead.
You're dead.
Absolutely.
I mean, kidney transplant, well, put them back on the machine, but it's a big, big difference. Heart, liver, and lung transplants are like that.
Yeah.
I got one more question. How did you start doing your radio thing? When did that come about?
Well, actually, what happened was one of the ladies who's the salesperson for that radio station, every time I would do street fair, she would come up to me and say, you need to do a show. I hear the stories. You need to do a show. She just kept asking me for probably about 2 years, tell you the truth. And I did about 5 or 6 street fairs. So I must have saw her about 20 times. And every time she came to me, she would say that. And I said to her, who's going to pay for that? She said, oh, if you want to do a show, we'll find somebody to help you. Because you know enough people. Thanks. You know enough people that you should be able to get a sponsor. I didn't even think about my OPO. And that's the truth. I wasn't thinking about my OPO. And she's like, well, you volunteer and an ambassador for Live On New York, so they should pay for it. They, at the radio station, got in contact with Live On New York and said, we're going to offer her a radio show, but we need you guys to sponsor it. And they said, yes. Simple as that. Simple as that. And now we're 3 years on, we're going to be 4 years out soon. If you notice, and most of you have been on the show, know, we don't have a lot of doctors and nurses and officials. I wanted it to be a show that is patient-centered. You've heard that. That's the buzzword of the year, patient-centered. And then it's always doctors and nurses and clinicians. No, we want this to be about patients. So that's why we have patients telling their stories, caregivers, donor families. For the most part, we try to stay away from, we'll have a couple of officials this month because it's Minority Awareness Month. But for the most part, probably 85% of the shows that we do are usually just with patients and donors and donor families. And we do that purposely because those are the stories that people always wanted to hear. When I would go out in the community, do my tables, people want to know from the people who have been through it. They don't want to know what the doctor has to say about whatever, because they always feel like the doctors have, that ulterior motive of making money or whatever. So with the show, we decided to do it centered around patients, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. No shortage of getting guests ever. I know the first year I did it, one of the people in the OPO says, "You'll never be able to find that many stories." We haven't even tapped it. We haven't even tapped it. There are so many amazing stories. We've had people from Switzerland, UK, from Canada, from all over the world call in to tell their stories. And we're going to continue to do that.
Roxanne, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy. I'm very happy.
You look happy. You do.
I see in the chat box, everybody is congratulating you, Roxanne, letting you know how much we appreciate you just taking away time. And since you explained to us where you are, really taking away time to spend with us and share with us your story and the success of your registrations. We appreciate you. We love you. And thank you so very much.
And for anybody who hasn't been on the show already and would like to be on the show, I'm leaving my email right now in the chat. Get in touch with me. We're all booked up for August, obviously. We have 3 OPOs coming on. We have Live On New York, New Jersey Sharon, and Core of Pennsylvania. But September looks good. So if you guys want to be on the show, just respond to my email. I'm sending it right now to you. And I'll see what I can do. Okay?
All righty. So with that in mind, we're going to let you get back to enjoying your Sunday.
Thank you.
EMAT wants to thank each of you for coming today, sharing it with us for National Minority Donor Awareness Month. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, and goodbye.
Thank you.